We'll just pause here while people join. Great, and once again, welcome to today's event. I am Megan Lochter. I'm a program manager with our community involvement team, which is another way of saying the events team. I have a 2015 Nissan Leaf that I used a year and a half ago and love driving it. So this is definitely a topic I'm passionate about.
All right, and my name is Adam Crawford. I'm the outreach manager for Kittitas County, Snoqualmie, and North Bend. I also help out with the renewables and electric vehicle team, and I own a 2017 Nissan Leaf.
Hi, I'm Michael Harthorn. I'm the marketing manager for our electric vehicle and renewable energy programs. I have to be very clear, my wife owns a Kia Niro EV, but I do occasionally get to use it. It's kind of our household car at this point.
And I'm Chris Bruno. I'm a Tesla guy who loves Tesla and EVs, and so that's what we'll be talking about.
All right, move into the next slide. For all of us in attendance today, we've been entered into winning a raffle. And so we have 2 raffle prizes that will consist of a very best ticket book for 10 free car washes and other PSE goodies. So if you are one of those 2 that is a winner, you will be notified later today. So good luck to everybody on this webinar. With that, we will move on to the next slide. This is it's not really a test, but it is a test. We want to test your knowledge on some electric vehicles. And so we'll go ahead and we'll spin this twice. If you think you know the answer, go ahead and put it into that chat box. So the first question is about the environment. Taking into account electricity generation, your CO2 emissions per mile can be approximately how many times lower in an electric vehicle than a gas-powered vehicle in Washington State? So if you think you know the answer to this, put this in the chat. Is it A3, B5, C7, or D9? I'm going to hand this off to Megan and see what her thoughts are on this one.
Can we hand this one to Michael?
All right, we'll get you on the next one. Michael, what do you think?
Okay.
Well, I wrote the question, so I'm not going to give away the answer, but it's helpful to remember that Washington State has some of the cleanest electricity in the country.
All right, so let's go ahead and show that answer. D9. So it could be as much as 9 times lower in an electric vehicle than a gas-powered one. So
Awesome.
for all those that got that correct, good job. Go ahead and spin one more time. And this one is about EV models. So how many electric vehicle models are currently available for under $30,000, including incentives in Washington State? Is it A2, B4, C6, or D8? All right, Megan, coming back to you.
Okay, I haven't checked our EV guide lately, but I am going to guess C6.
Okay, I see lots of answers coming in. We're kind of all over the board. So let's go ahead and show that answer. Nice. Yes,
Cool.
models available
So
under
proud.
$30,000. Good job. All right, and we'll move on into the poll before we get to Michael. There will be a poll that pops up. The question is, have you ever driven an electric vehicle? Is it yes, not yet, no, you've ridden in one, or if it is something else, go ahead and put that into the chat. And since I know Michael's already driven an EV since they own one, question for you, Michael, is what was your first experience like with an electric vehicle?
My first experience was checking out one of the Chevy Bolts that PSE has in its fleet. I had to drive it around for work for a couple of different reasons. I drove it all the way down to Kent, and I drove it all the way up to Shoreline, then I drove it all the way back down to Kent for a full day, and it was great. It was way zippier, even though I tell our customers it's zippy. As soon as I actually drove one, I was like, wow, that is zippy. And while it takes you a couple minutes to get over that range anxiety, where you're really focused in on the range left as you're driving, I was shocked with how much miles I still had left when I finished my big round trip from Kent to Shoreline and back to Kent.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. All right, looks like the poll has closed, and at 40%, not yet, followed closely at 38% with yes, you have driven an EV. So thanks everybody for playing along. I'm going to hand it off to Michael, and he'll get into some details about our electric vehicle and renewables program.
Yep, thanks, Adam. So why are we here today? There are over 96,000 electric vehicles already on the roads in Washington State. We think that's going to increase pretty dramatically here in the next few years, especially because Washington State has set a 2030 target date for only allowing new sales of electric vehicles. So I think as fast as electric vehicles in Washington has grown, they're going to grow even faster pretty soon. And PSE wants to make it as easy as possible for our customers to make that switch when it's time. Having a hard time switching the slide. There we go. So why go electric? The button finally kicked in. First, save money. Studies have found EVs are actually cheaper to own than in a regular gas-powered car, even when factoring in that higher startup price. In fact, a University of Michigan study from a few years ago found that EVs cost about less than half as much to operate on a yearly basis than gas-powered cars. EVs are also better for the environment. You can cut your emissions in half just by driving an EV charged on PSE's grid. And finally, EVs are plain fun to drive. Like I said, I was shocked at how zippy that Chevy Bolt in our fleet felt. And there's just great new technology in EVs. One of the new electric trucks has a pass-through where you can store long lumber all the way through because you don't have to worry about any of the gas vehicle pieces and parts. So it's just a lot of fun stuff. Because this is what a lot of people care about, let's talk a little bit more about those savings. A study from Consumer Reports found long-term ownership costs can be up to $10,000 cheaper for EVs than gas vehicles, and that's when taking into account higher purchase prices. And that's largely due to savings on fuel and maintenance. It's really easy to save over $1,000 per year on fuel when you're using electricity rather than gas. With current gas prices, it's actually pretty easy to save nearly $2,000 just by switching to an EV. And then when it comes to maintenance, you won't need things like oil changes, transmission fluids, spark plugs. So that'll save an average about $1,800 on maintenance every 5 years. Most EV owners, they really take it in every couple of years for tires, get the tires rotated and checked, and that's almost it. There are available incentives. I know a lot of people ask this question. The federal tax credit can save you between $2,500 and $7,500 on a new EV. The only EVs that doesn't apply to are Tesla models and the Chevy Bolt and GMC Hummer, because General Motors and Tesla have sold so many models that they've now graduated past that tax credit. Meanwhile, the Washington State also has a sales tax exemption that can save you up to $1,300 on a new EV, depending on the price, and up to $1,040 on a used EV, depending on the price. So the biggest change with your life if you switch to an electric vehicle will be charging. We like to say it's no big deal with a little planning. A lot of people actually, once they get used to it, find it as a benefit over gas stations. I know my wife so far has with her Kia Niro. So let's talk about what that looks like for most people. To start with, you have level 1 charging. That's a cable that comes with pretty much every model of EV, and it can plug into a standard outlet. You're not going to get a lot of range per hour of charging, as you can see there, but if you plug in overnight, unplug in the morning, you can probably get back your day's driving, depending on what your daily commute and driving needs are. So we usually recommend our customers start with a level 1 charger, try it out, see if it meets their needs. I think all 3 of the PSE event panelists, Megan, Adam, and myself, all use level 1 charging at home. So if you don't do too much driving, it's a great option. If you do a lot of driving or just want a faster charge for any reason, you can have an electrician install a level 2 charger at your home. You'll also find these in public places and workplaces, multifamily properties. It's a little faster on charging. You will need an electrician to install it. It requires a 420 volt outlet. like a larger appliance. And it's about $1,500 to $18 for the charger and installation based on some recent quotes we've received. And PSE can always refer you to a electrician that specializes in charger installation if you'd like to get a quote or have any questions. The final kind of charging right now is DC fast charging. You can get a full charge in about an hour or so. These look like gas stations. You find them in public places. PSE has 3 of our own DC fast charging stations open in Kent, Bellingham, and Lacey. We have 5 more on the way in the next couple of years. With these, you pay by an app. Usually, some of them have card readers, but they're mostly used for long commutes on road trips, just for a quick top off when needed, because they are going to be pricier than charging at home. And when you own an EV, you get into the mindset where most of your charging is usually done at home or at work. Public charging really is kind of a rare occasion for most EV drivers. So let's get to the exciting stuff. Electric trucks are finally here. This is one of the top questions we've always gotten. So I created a slide for it because they're finally hitting the road. You can see 3 of the pickup truck options that are available now. There are more on the way. While you read that, let's just talk about other models that are available. You can see there are over 30 you can now choose from in Washington. I saw someone asked in the comments or in the Q&A about Hyundai models. There are electric Hyundai models available in Washington, the Hyundai Kona, Hyundai Ioniq 5, so you can get those. Let's see, what else do I want to say? For a lot of people who are concerned about range and haven't looked at new EV models lately, new models do have an average 280-mile range. Granted, that's skewed a little bit by some pretty expensive high-end models. So if you're looking at just EVs that can be had for less than $35,000, there are 8 models, and those have an average range of 225. So there really are plenty of choices to meet your daily driving needs, unless you do have just a very long commute or are taking road trips a couple of times a month. So I encourage you to go check out our electric vehicle guide if you haven't already. It's at ev.pse.com. You can compare models, you can explore, you get pictures, compare between EVs, compare EVs to gas-powered cars. It's a really great way to do your shopping for EVs. Especially because, as you've probably noticed, supplies are really low in EVs right now. Well, Adam called many dealerships in the area. None of them have any EVs in stock at the moment. They're all back ordered. So the ability to take a test drive is pretty limited. If getting a little hands-on EV experience is what you're looking for, we recommend checking out some car shows. There are 2 coming up, the Electrify Expo in July and the Seattle International Auto Show in November, I believe. Those will have EVs on hand that you can test drive. There's also National Drive Electric Week. If you look that up, there are owner gatherings in the area later this summer where owners, I'm sure, will be happy to show off their EVs to you. Finally, EVs are already a greener way to go. When you purchase an electric vehicle and charge it on PSE's grid, like I said, you can cut your emissions in half. You can lose about 2 tons of carbon emissions every year just by switching to an EV when you're traveling around. But if you enroll in one of PSE's renewable energy programs, you can make your travel even greener. We have 3 affordable options for electricity customers: Green Power, Solar Choice, and Community Solar. You can see how those work there. The first 2, Green Power and Solar Choice, allow you to match your electricity use with renewable energy. And then Community Solar, we actually, you can enroll in shares of new solar arrays that we're building on top of school roofs and other community areas, and you can get the benefits of solar energy generated right in your neighborhood while helping new solar installations go up. All of those will definitely make your charging greener. We also have a way to generate your own renewable energy if you'd like. Our Customer Connected Solar program can get you started on installing solar panels at your home. So just those 3 ways to go. If you're a gas customer as well, we do have other options like renewable natural gas and carbon balance for our gas customers. All right, hand it back to Adam.
All right, so let's get into the second and final poll. Question is, if you're considering an electric vehicle, what's the biggest selling point for you? So that it's better for the environment, better driving experience, state and federal incentives, savings on taxes, fuel, and maintenance, increasing popularity and model selection, cool technology, or is it something else? If it is something else, go ahead and put that in the chat. I know when my wife and I were looking for an electric vehicle, she wanted it primarily for going back and forth to work, which is about 40 miles round trip. And doing a cost comparison between our 2014 F-150 and 2017 Nissan Leaf, it wasn't even close. And so it's definitely the fuel and maintenance costs that incentivized us to go with an electric vehicle. So the poll is now closed, and at 50%, we're looking at better for the environment. Coming in second at 34% was savings on taxes, fuel, and maintenance. So thanks everybody again for participating in that poll. We will now move on to my favorite portion of the call. And that is talking with an EV owner. And so I'd like to introduce Chris Bruno. He bought his first EV back in June of 2018. It is a Tesla Model S, and he loves the rocket-like acceleration of that electric vehicle. So first of all, Chris, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to participate today. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so let's get started. Why did you first explore buying an electric vehicle? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I first started considering it because my other car was starting to fail. So it was a 1998 Ford Taurus, and it had 190,000 miles on it, and it leaked oil, and so I had smelled fumes in the cabin. Brake pads were wearing out. It was a very touchy brakes. The steering control linkage was loose, and so it was very loose steering, and muffler fell off once, and the alternator died on me when I was driving on I-5 through Seattle at midnight, and it was only by the grace of God that I was able to coast off the highway. Then the replacement alternator died a month later while I was driving down a narrow, winding mountain road. So for fear of my life, I needed a new one. And so I considered Tesla because I was 29 at the time, and I thought, okay, I want to get a new car. I want one that's going to last, like potentially for forever, be like the one and only car I ever need for my whole life. So Tesla was my biggest choice, because thinking at the time only the S and the X were available, the top tier expensive models. But if you look over the course of 20 years, that high initial cost might seem all right. And also it's just pure enjoyment and love every time you get into it. And there's a value in that too. So that's why I chose Tesla, hit my order, and then it was just a 2-month wait, got it exactly on my 30th birthday. That was quite a way to bring in a new decade.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, well, and that brings me back. My first vehicle I ever had was a Ford Taurus. And sure enough, I really enjoyed that vehicle, but understand as internal combustion engines get older, they start having issues. Then another thing, you'd mentioned Tesla being a car that could potentially last a long time. I used to work out at Wild Horse, our wind facility in Ellensburg, and we work with our local historical museum, and we have a 120-year-old electric vehicle on display up there. And part of us being able to display that, we put new car batteries in it, we put new tires on it, and the thing still runs 120 years later, and we drive it in parades.
Yeah, it's great. Life goes full circle.
Not much maintenance for that electric vehicle.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into another question. What's the #1 tip you'd give someone looking at electric vehicle ownership?
Yeah, so my biggest tip is that it's okay to not know everything before you take the plunge. So I think the biggest 2 hangups that people most likely to have is service, particularly for Tesla, is service going to be good, and then charging infrastructure. So those things you discover it's a difference you need to adjust to, but you find that it's pretty easy to adjust, and you find that the difference is actually a difference for the better because it works out, it's fine, it's great. You change your habits, and then you find out that, oh, these new way of doing things is actually a better and a nicer way of doing things than the old stuff I was used to. So don't let uncertainty hold you back from taking the plunge. It'll work out. It's fine.
Very
You'll love
good.
it.
Yeah, I know with right after we had purchased ours, we have about 100-mile range. And so it does the job it was intended to get my wife back and forth to work. But it really was a change in thinking of, hey, I can't just go to the gas station, fill up in 5 minutes, and then get to where I need to be. It's the night before, we're making sure the car is plugged in. And so when we're ready to go in the morning, we have that full charge. And so it's just a little it takes a little bit of getting used to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So can you tell us the best part of owning an electric vehicle in your opinion?
Oh, it is so fun to drive every day. So when you stomp your foot on that accelerator off a line, it's like a roller coaster, but in a horizontal motion. So it's just like, I've had it for almost 4 years now, and I still get giddy and laugh every time I do it. So if you're in a good mood when you start driving, you're in a great mood when you start. Or if you're in a sad mood, you can just stomp on that accelerator, whip around, and you feel great after your drive every time. So it really is, it makes, like, if you have a normal car and you think it's just a means to get from one place to another, just a means to an end, like, an electric car is an end in itself because it just makes the journey part of the enjoyment as well as the destination, wherever you're going. Or just an end in itself. You just want to go for a fun drive.
Yep. Yeah, and they handle really well too, with the batteries being a low center of gravity. You have that low COG, and so it makes the handling a lot better.
Handles turns beautifully. Mine is the S is a big car. It's a full size hatchback. It handles turns beautifully.
Do you have the numbers for torque and horsepower?
I don't know exactly what they are for my car, but it's enough to make you go wee.
All right, that answers the question right there. What is your charging routine like?
Yeah, so I've never charged at home because I've always rented. So there is a Tesla supercharger in Issaquah, which I go to, and it's by Fred Meyer. So whenever I need to get groceries, plug in while I grocery shop. And if I still need some, I just chill out, watch a movie, play some video games while it's finishing. And there's a level 2 station near my office that's free. So that's great. That's a perk that some might have. Some businesses offer free charging. So if you could find that, that's great. And so then I visit my parents every once in a while. I help them. I installed a level 2 charging at their place. So when I go down to visit there, I can plug in for a few hours if it's just a short visit. So yeah, I've never charged at home, and that's been fine. I'm just the renter type of guy. Never, yeah, managed
Well,
other ways.
that leads us right into our next question. How do you deal with range anxiety?
I don't have it because the stated range on mine was 265, I think was the official range. And so that's enough to get me to Portland from Seattle. And another perspective is, and I wrote here, it gets me from Everett to Tacoma and back twice. So like hearing these miles, you think, oh, it's only 250 miles or it's only 200 miles. But when you think about it, that gets you a long ways.
Yep.
And a 300-mile range will get you to Portland or to Spokane, which is a lot of options now these days. So that's a lot of driving. You need to stop anyways for a bathroom break before that. So I don't have range anxiety. No.
Very good. So have you had any maintenance with your Tesla, and what was that experience like?
It's been phenomenal. Tesla experience. I can only speak from my personal experience in Bellevue. So there's plenty of attention-grabbing headlines that say Tesla service sucks or whatever, but the Bellevue Service Center is phenomenal. So I had a wind noise issue that they fixed, and then they gave me a loaner car. They gave me a performance Model S loaner car, which is insane. And then I drove over a screwdriver bit, and they had a mobile service technician come out and met me in my work parking lot. So if you're within a radius of their service center, they send a mobile tech out right to where you are, which was phenomenal. And then I had a crack windshield, which they fixed fine. And then the glass cover of my car got a crack on it. So I had to replace that. And it was fine. You make an appointment on the app, they call back and follow up if needed, and you go in, do it. It's great.
Very good. Well, could you tell a difference between the performance model and the Model S?
Oh yeah. So mine was the base model, and that was great. The performance with ludicrous mode, it's so, even my base level when I was used to, it's almost like too powerful.
Okay.
To be, it's like you need a training course to know how to do it right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I could feel it in my eyeballs, the acceleration, the G-forces.
Yeah, I have not experienced that yet, but I've seen videos of people in ludicrous mode, and it just shoves them right back in the seat.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
if you're not ready for it, I could imagine it'd be quite an experience. And how many miles on your Tesla?
I think about 36,000. So it's still pretty new. Yeah.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. And we always like to ask our guests this, but how far have you ever driven your electric vehicle? Have you taken on any road trips? How was that?
I drove to Ohio, a road trip already 2 years ago now. So with Tesla specifically, their supercharger network is phenomenal, and it's integrated with the car. So you just voice navigate. I just said, voice navigate, drive me to Cincinnati. And then it plotted a route, and then automatically just guides you to each route, to each charging station along the way. And it figures out how long you need to charge at each one to get to the next one. So it just took me across the country, no sweat, no problems at all.
Very good.
Yeah, and I've done day trips too, around to Port Angeles and around to Forks, down the peninsula, and then day trips down to shorter trips down to Long Beach, and then up to where the tulips are. I'm blanking on the name.
Skagit.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good. All right. Well, it sounds like you have a lot more cross-country experience than I do in our electric vehicle. The furthest we've ever taken ours is from Ellensburg to Roslyn. And that was in the middle of winter when it was about 20 degrees out. And so we had to stop and charge up in Roslyn and then make our way back. All right, final question. What's the best part about electric vehicle ownership from your experience?
Yeah, so I think besides the fact that it's a fun car and a great car, it's really fun to feel like you're part of the transition to a sustainable energy future, because like there's a lot of things we as individuals want to do and want to try to do to make a difference, and they're great. And an electric car is a thing you can do that's great, and it's also fun. It's also a better for your life, and it's also like, yeah, it's actually part of the transition. Eventually all ICE vehicles will be gone. It'll be a thing of the past. So you buy it now, you're like, yeah, jumping on that wave right now.
Very good. All right. Well, hey, thanks again for your time. If you stick around, if anybody here on the call has any questions for Chris or any one of us, go ahead and put that in the Q&A section, and we will either get to that on this call or we'll follow up with you. So now we'll move on into our next section. As we get into that, there are a couple of sites and email addresses we have for you. And so for those that are interested in browsing different models, looking at incentives, both federally and for Washington, and to get a list of different charging stations that you can use, you can go to ev.pse.com. If you do have any questions that pop up after this call, go ahead and shoot us an email at electricvehicle@pse.com. Or if you want to sign up for Michael's monthly newsletter, you can do that at pse.com/electriccars. Really good content in there, and I'm not just saying that. Now I will hand it off to Megan and we'll get into the Q&A section.
Awesome, thank you. We have a lot of questions, so we'll try to breeze through this pretty quickly. I did just see a question in the chat and I was curious too. Chris, do you remember how many days it took you to get to Cincinnati?
It was we did a cannonball run. I drove with my dad going there, and it was like a day and a half, I want to say. No, 2 nights. So the first night we got all the way to Montana. I think it was Billings. And then the second night, I just drove straight through the night. Like I just loaded up a bunch of energy drinks from one of the stops and just drove through the night. So we got there the next day. And then going back, I just came back on my own down south. It came up through the Rocky Mountain State, Colorado. And then I took 3 days just because I wanted to just enjoy each stop, spend time at each stop, and be a tourist at each place along the way. So
nice, great. So question here, let's see, Michael, this is a little bit about charging, installing a charger. So are there any incentives or discounts for either level 2 charger installation for PSE customers? I think we had that come through from a couple different people. So
Yep, of course. PSE had offered a rebate in the past. We don't currently offer one, but it's something we're looking at in the future. We are currently developing our transportation electrification plan. You'll be hearing a lot more about that next year. Included in that plan is a residential single-family home charging program, as well as a multifamily charging program. I can't get into the details of what those programs will include yet, unfortunately. Like Adam said, if you want to sign up for our Up and Go Electric newsletter, that's probably the quickest way to hear about any future program offerings when we can discuss them, which should be in the next couple months, hopefully.
great. Another one for you, Michael. We had a lot of buzz after that poll question or the wheel question about the vehicles that are available in Washington State for under 30K. Can you let our attendees know where they can find those vehicles?
Sure. So if you go to our electric vehicle guide at ev.pse.com, you can search both full electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles. You can sort by price. I'll just read you off right now if you want. The vehicles are available for $30,000 or less, including incentives right now. And obviously these don't factor in any sort of upcharges at dealerships, but also dealerships will tend to offer their own incentives also beyond federal and state. So it's all kind of an estimate, but the Nissan Leaf, the Chevy Bolt, the Honda Ioniq, the Mazda MX-30, the Chevy Bolt EUV, the Mini Electric, the Hyundai Kona, and then if you want to go into like $31,000 range, the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Kia Niro, and the Volkswagen ID4 are all right around in that range.
Great, thank you. We have a pretty specific question coming from Kim about the Tesla waiting period. So Chris, I don't know if you have much information on this, but do you know what that waiting period feels like? Like,
well, when I ordered it,
waiting for 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I ordered it in 2018 before the Model 3 ramp happened. So I originally placed a reservation for the Model 3 and I was expecting to wait a year plus. But then when my car started making me fear for my life, I decided, oh no, I have to get the S instead. Oh no, because that was only a 2-month wait. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's tough. There's just so much demand and they're trying so hard to fill all the orders.
Yeah. Michael, we have a couple questions about the slide that you shared about the cost of the cost savings, and wondering what those cost savings are, what time period those cost savings are calculated over. And then also how long we can estimate that like a car battery could last.
Sure. So as for the savings, I think the question I saw was about that $8,000 to $10,000 cheaper over long-term ownership from Consumer Reports. I believe that was a 8-year ownership. It may have been 10, but I'm pretty sure it was 8. I don't have the link to the article right in front of me. I will say that really there are additional costs with EVs, especially in Washington where there is a higher registration cost, but that's easily offset by the savings you get from the change in fuel to electricity and maintenance. And electricity, like we've said, is going to, your electric bill will go up, but it's going to go up by far less than what you'd be paying at a gas station. So the annual savings are definitely real, especially as overall costs come down to buy an EV. What was the second part of the question, Megan? Batteries?
Battery life.
Sure. Most batteries are under warranty in new EV for 8 to 10 years or up to 150,000 miles. Most Americans buy a new car every 10 years, so the chance you're going to have to replace the battery is low, especially combined with the fact that most EV batteries are lasting longer in studies than previously expected. They're not losing their life nearly as fast. So if you do have to replace a battery, it's going to be expensive. It depends on the manufacturer, anywhere from $1,000 to multiple thousands of bucks. I think up to 8,000 maybe. So the best thing to do is just make sure you have a good warranty when you buy the vehicle. Understand that even when a battery is 8 to 10 years old, it's still going to have a lot of range, especially with the increased ranges of newer EVs. And also, if you're buying a used EV, definitely ask to see it fully charged, see what the range looks like, and see if the battery's already been replaced. If you can find a used EV where the battery's already been replaced, that's a great bonus.
Awesome. Thank you for that 2-part answer. Michael, or sorry, Adam, maybe you can help us answer this one. Have you experienced any changes to your mileage based on driving conditions? Like if you're on a highway or in stop and go traffic?
Yeah, absolutely. Temperature has a lot to do with range, at least in my experience with our 2017 Nissan Leaf. And so when it gets brutally cold in the 20s, we definitely see our range go down. Typically when it is cold out, we won't use the heater, but we will run the seat heat to keep us warm. And then that's only because we're pretty stubborn when it comes to range. And so we're willing to put on a jacket and a parka to make sure that we have that range. And then the other thing with that, what was the second part of that question? Sorry.
Sorry, I have to find it again. Like if you're in stop and go traffic versus,
Okay,
yeah.
When we're driving around town, I cannot believe how slowly the range goes down. And so when it's 25 to 35 miles an hour just puttering around town, you barely see that battery percentage go down. And so that's really the sweet spot is driving the Leaf around town at lower mile per hour.
That's been my experience too. I think where you see the most battery loss is when you're like trying to go 65 on the freeway. Like if you keep it at 60, at least for my Leaf, because I don't have a lot of, I think I get 80 miles on my charge. So yeah, I just kind of chill in the slow lane and then I know I'll be good.
Yeah, one other experience from where we live to where my wife works, it's like a 1,500-foot elevation gain. And so on the way out there, you'll see that battery go from 100% down to 40%. But then on the way down, the battery's actually charging back up as she's driving it. And there's, 10 to 20% battery loss on the way down. And so it all depends on where you're going. If you have a headwind versus a tailwind, can change it too.
And those are probably things you have to think about more when you have a car like ours that has the less charge. Probably, Chris, you don't even think about that stuff.
Well, I'm aware of it because the cold makes the battery likes to be like us, like in the ideal sweet spot for humans. So if the battery's cold, it can't accept the charge as fast from regen. And so that's the thing that reduces its range if it can't have the regen breaking.
Great. A couple questions about Tesla charging, Chris. Do you know if other people can charge their vehicles if they're not Teslas at charging stations? And then are you able to charge at non-Tesla stations?
So for the first one is not yet. So Tesla wants to and intends to allow other cars to charge at their stations. So they are starting to expand in Europe. But for the States, they want to do that. They'll have to figure out how to offer an adapter, or maybe they retrofit a few stations at each site to have a plug for the other cars. So not yet in the States, but it's coming. And when I bought it, an adapter was included for the J1772 for level 2 charging at general public stations. So when I use the level 2 charging near my office, I have that adapter. And there is one available for the CCS level 3 available, but I haven't bought it because I just use the supercharger network for level 3.
And do you have to pay to charge at the supercharger station?
I was lucky. I got in on a referral from a friend, and so their referral program at the time when I bought it allowed the purchaser to get free unlimited supercharging for life, which is great. Yeah, a little perk. Yeah, which is nice. So I got that. So never had to pay for a Tesla supercharge.
Great. Michael, have you noticed what the charge might be? Because your wife charges at home, right? Have you seen any impact on your bill?
No, actually, which I know it must have gone up, but it has not gone up enough to the point where I notice it when I'm paying it. We don't do a ton of driving, so it doesn't need to charge too much, which I think is probably most people. You drive to and from work 30 miles or so, and that's kind of it. You run a couple grocery store errands, so it definitely hasn't gone up nearly enough to notice. And I definitely lately, especially, have noticed when I filled up our Prius at the gas station. So I would say that we're probably saving a good deal of money, especially right now.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Sorry. Could you talk a little, Michael, about whether PSE will offer any off-peak rates like some other utilities do?
After electric trucks, that's probably the most common question we get. We currently don't have any plans to offer time of use charging. There are still benefits to charging overnight for the environment when fewer people are using the grid. But in terms of changing rates, not at this time. Like I said, we do have a transportation electrification plan that we're getting ready to put into action in the next 2 years. And time of use is something that we still discuss internally. We just don't have any concrete plans at this point.
Great. And then question about buying a used EV. I know you talked about the battery, but is there anything else that people should look out for when they're considering a used EV?
Sure. If you're going to buy a used EV, one, definitely make sure you take advantage of the Washington State tax credit. Make sure you, if you have a tax professional you can talk to, you do, just to make sure you're fully getting your incentive. Some people forget about it. Battery health really is maybe the main thing with used EVs, other than what you normally look for in any used car. Like I said, make sure you can see it at 100% charge just to see what range is displayed. And when you go into it, kind of have your expectations set. You're probably, if you're getting a used EV, you're probably not going to get the range you'd see with a new version of that same model. You can probably expect maybe 75% capacity on the battery if it hasn't been replaced. That's still, again, unless you have a massive commute or take a ton of road trips, it's probably still going to be just enough to get you through your day. I know, Megan, you have a used Leaf, you two, Adam, and you drive it. So even if you don't get the maximum range of like a new Leaf, it's still going to be definitely functional for everyday use. Let's see, anything else beyond batteries? Make sure that level 1 charging cord is still with the vehicle. That's how you're going to plug in when you get home. So unless you want to quickly order one off Amazon, which is I think around like $200, make sure that the vehicle still has its charging cable so you can charge when you get home. Otherwise, that's about it. I'll share a link in the chat right now that has some more tips in case anyone wants to read those.
Yeah, I'll jump in too from our experience. We looked for probably close to a year at all the different Nissan Leafs. Knew that was probably the one in our price range. And so it was really looking at what size battery will work best for what we needed that vehicle to do, which was just go back and forth to work. She also got on a Nissan Leaf forum. And so she was able to ask actual owners of those vehicles what to look for. They ended up letting us know that there is a program called Leaf Spy where you can actually plug into that specific car and it'll give you a lot of details on the battery health. And so we actually went to a used car dealer and then she found hers through that Nissan Leaf forum, checked, made sure the battery health was at 100% or close to 100%. And that's how we did it. So definitely making sure that you're checking those batteries to make sure that health is where you want it to be.
Great. I know we've talked a lot about charging, but I have a specific question for you, Chris. What is the average cost for recharging in a public place like Fred Meyer, as you mentioned? And how long do you usually have to wait for that?
So I can't answer the first one because I have the free charging, so I never pay attention.
Oh, that is,
yeah. But how long? So if I just charge, I'm opportunistic with charging. So if I'm going grocery shopping, I just plug in, do my grocery shopping, and then when I'm done, I just unplug and leave. And if I guess if I, on the rare occasion, I do specifically want to charge up, maybe half an hour. If it's like really low and I don't plan on shopping, but I need to drive somewhere. But I mean, Tesla has video games in the car, which is so fun. And I have video game controllers. And you can stream Netflix and Hulu. So I have my Netflix account set up, watch a TV show or something while charging. So they take a lot of effort to make the experience really fun with all the things. So like if I have to charge for an hour, which happens occasionally if I'm like really low and I just don't pay attention, but I want to drive somewhere far, it's like, oh no, I have to play video games for an hour.
Something you would probably do anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't have any console, so my gaming is entirely with my car experience.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which is fun.
It's like a new way of living. Chris, can you also address any vehicle insurance costs, like for an EV compared to gas? Derek asked that question.
Yeah, I have a bundle with I think it's Progressive or Esurance. I don't even know. It's like $500 per 6-month term, which I guess is okay. So it's I started out paying a little bit more premium because I actually wanted damage coverage because I actually had a car worth repairing if it got damaged. So I think it was like $700 per 6-month term. So I guess that's okay. I don't know.
Great. I can share too. I use a company that charges you by the mile because I don't drive much. And so I have all the same coverage that I used to have, but when I started working from home, I made the switch because I just don't commute. So so that's another thing to look into. I will also say that I didn't notice any difference. I do have an internal combustion vehicle and my EV on my insurance policy, and there isn't a difference in like the EV being insured, costing more to insure. Great. I think we are about at our last question here. So as batteries improve and you may have a vehicle with older technology, if you make a purchase now, is there a possibility that you would be regretting that? Do you have any thoughts on that, Chris or Michael?
I would say, and this is just my personal choice, my wife leased her new Kia Niro for exactly that reason. That way she can drive it for a few years and then trade it in to get the newer technology with the better ranges as they come down the line. I think that's a good solution. I don't know that there'll be a way to extend your range if you have like an older Leaf and try to put some future battery that comes out down the line into it. I have no idea how that would work. I think leasing is probably a safer bet, or maybe waiting a year or two to buy an EV just to see what more is coming out down the line, because there are going to be a lot more hitting the streets.
Yeah, I think my thought on it is that EV improving technology, that's true of lots of technologies we buy, and that doesn't stop us from buying new phones or new computers. So like when you make a purchase, it's going to be the best available thing at the time, and it's going to be great. And so my car is already in a lot of ways outdated, but I still love it because it's so great. It's still great, even though other new options are better. So when you make the purchase, whatever it may be, and it's the best option available for the time, that's kind of just true in general of a lot of electronics you purchase. And you still buy it, even though new stuff is going to come out, because it's great and you enjoy it for a long time.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining today. Thank you especially to Chris for sharing your expertise. Please check your email in the coming days. We'll be sending out resources, links, and the recording. And then for attending today, you've been entered to win these car wash tickets. And so we'll send you an email today if you are one of those 2 lucky winners. And we do have a survey after today's event, and we would love to have your input and your feedback. And on that, it's an anonymous survey. And so we'd love to hear from you. And with that, we will go ahead and say goodbye. But once again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.